Hi everybody, welcome back to the Creative Shelf, and you are joining me on a bright, beautiful, sunny evening in Brussels. So there you go. It was pouring with rain yesterday, but yeah, we've got a good day today. And I thought I would kind of like join in with the conversation. Hello again, Tarot. It's a hashtag created by Kasia from tarotmap. I think it began somewhere at the end of August, and I've seen other people's response to it, and I thought, yeah, this is a cool one. So what was interesting actually was, as I was looking for decks on my shelf which kind of like were useful for this tag, I realized I have several decks which are kind of like in the forgotten category. So this is more kind of like also a ramble about things that I'm not currently using that I would like to use or revisit. And yeah, so this is going to be fun. So the first question I have is, hello again, show us an old deck that you fell in love with and started using again. So the deck that comes to mind is one that I bought, I think it's in 2015. I bought her as part of like the decks that I bought when I came into tarot, and that is my Paulina Tarot. Now this is a deck that I don't show very often, and that's because I kind of like used her a lot when I first started learning tarot. And that's because, as you can tell from one of my other videos, I used the Rider-Waite-Smith original as like my learning deck. But yeah, this was the closest I got to a deck which really kind of like felt, yeah, closer to who I am actually. And so I use the Paulina Tarot very often actually for readings with friends and so forth. It's a US Games publication, print job, and it's from 2008, the copy that I have. Now, since then, Paulina Cassidy has done loads of other decks. I think she's done Jeu de Vivre. She's also done recently the Phantasma, I think it's called Phantasma Tarot, which is borderless, and apparently the cards are much easier for her to read. But I only have the Paulina right now, and I love this deck. It only comes with a little white standard guidebook, so you might want to invest in one of your own. But these are the backs. There you go. It's whiting out there, so sorry about that. But these are the backs, and I know somebody, I think it's Kelly from the Truth and Story, she had taken off the borders and said that then the details become too much. So I've left my borders on, and I don't really want to modify this deck either. I might edge her at one point, but I'm not looking to modify it. But the deck is just gorgeous. It is Fey energy, very detailed, absolutely exquisite artwork. And I'm really glad I have this deck. And I think she's a little bit forgotten now. It's almost like I feel like she's like, hey, you stopped using me. And it's interesting because last year during the pandemic, when I came back to tarot, before I ordered some decks, I was using this deck to actually read with people. I think when I'd done an order and I was still waiting weeks and weeks for it to come through, I'd ordered with Book Depository. With Book Depository, usually for Belgium, it's taking us 2 to 3 weeks at least to get the decks. So I decided to use the Paulina again, and she read so beautifully. Now, because of the detail of the artwork, I find that this deck, I can't use her for like a huge spread or like 5 or 6 or I don't know, even 8 or 9 card readings. It just becomes too much, like, whoa, what's going on here? I think she's much better when there's a few cards, like about 3 cards, coupled maybe with another deck or with an oracle deck, and that's when she really shines the brightest. And as you can see, the artwork is extremely busy. So if you're interested in this deck, I mean, it just depends upon your own eyesight, basically. That's the best way I'm going to put it. And you can see here in this one that you have the main artwork, but in the corner you have another piece of artwork. And that's why Paulina Cassidy's decks are just gorgeous. I mean, those that have these decks, or at least one of Paulina Cassidy's decks, I mean, we know how beautiful the way she does the drawings are, the ink and the use of color, the use of pastels, but then these gorgeous variations that we have. And it was really kind of like, you have to kind of like go into the cards really in depth because there's so much in them. Sometimes I feel and this is just a bit of a hypothesis, but sometimes I feel that US Games releases a specific type of deck, and it's almost like Llewellyn kind of like has its opposite. And I know about Shadowscapes, and I don't have that deck, but I almost feel like this is the US Games equivalent of that kind of fine, detailed artwork. And I've seen that with different categories where there's a US Games style deck in that category, and then I find a Llewellyn variation, and it's almost like, what goes on here, you know? So that's just my hypothesis, right? It's just me doing some guesswork. I might be completely wrong here, but I absolutely find this so gorgeous. And yeah, and I just thought she would fall really well into this category of a deck that I fell in love with, and she's not seen much love lately. So who knows? You know, I think I will. I have to tell you a secret. I want to get the Phantasma. I want to get her latest one because that's borderless and apparently a little bit less busy. And I know there's a few people I've seen who've bought that deck. I'm just trying to think of the latest person who I'd seen who that comes to mind. I think it's Paper Moon Tarot. I think the lady at Paper Moon Tarot has also bought this deck and shown it. I might be wrong there though. I think it's Nancy, right, at Paper Moon Tarot. But yeah, I really love this deck in that sense. But yeah, my guilty secret actually is that I want to get her latest one because apparently, yeah, it is less busy and the borders are gone. So just to try it, and I do love this deck. It will always be with me. I will never get rid of it because, of course, it's one of my first decks, and I think she needs a bit of love again. So the next category we have is getting to know you better, a deck that you have been working on already and is still working with or working for, a deck you're getting to know better, basically. Okay, so this is where like the guilt comes in. I've had this deck for a while and I'm kind of getting to know it better because the truth is I'm trying to get to know its original standard kind of like system better, and that's the Jill Tarot or the Gill Tarot. I don't know how to produce it. So this is by Elizabeth Josephine Gill. It is another US Games. I have the 2018 edition, and the reason I bought this deck was because of course I do know that some tarot tubers like this deck. And this was when I came back to tarot last year, actually. So this is one of my first buys. I think this was in August last year. And it is an absolutely gorgeous deck. I know not a lot of people like this deck. Well, I don't know. It's like it's a bit like Marmite. You either love it or you don't. I love it. But after I bought it, I realized when I was checking it again on TarotTube that this is a Thoth system. So I'm actually working with Thoth right now. And as you know, as some of you know, I mentioned a few videos ago, I'm reading the book 36 Secrets, which of course makes a lot more sense to me, the astrological aspects of tarot, but and also Tarot Deciphered, of course, also helps that book. But yeah, this is the Jill Tarot, and I'm currently looking at Thoth kind of like just very lightly. I'm not doing a deep dive. If anybody is working with the Thoth or is trying to work with it and is struggling or like what is going on here, of course it's a different system from the RWS. There are similarities, overlaps and so forth, because they're both Golden Dawn. The channel and like the platform, like the platforms that I would recommend are Nina from Shuffle Tarot. She has a Thoth from Scratch Facebook group. And Nina does post very regularly kind of like videos explaining the system. There's a couple of other people in that group that are experts basically in Thoth. That's the best way I'm going to put it. And so I would recommend going to that Facebook group because the thing about learning tarot, which I didn't have like 6-7 years ago, honestly speaking, is now we have these channels where other people are learning. So you can bounce your ideas off. You can say, I don't understand this part of the image, or what's it trying to say, or what this card is about, or I'm struggling, or does anybody know beginner books, X, Y, and Z. And there's just so much help out there. Well, when about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, we were all kind of like just lost in the dark. And I know people like me were trying to just read books and figure it out with Googling, basically. So yeah, I don't know how else to put it, but if you are learning Thoth and you want something, and also if you want a deck which isn't actually just a Thoth deck, you're like, yeah, but I would like some variations of it. There's this, and then there's some others I know that are loosely inspired by Thoth, but I think this is one of the closest you're going to get. And I think that art, sorry, it is blowing out quite a bit here, but I think the art is just gorgeous, phenomenal art. So yeah, so this is a deck that I've been kind of like getting to know a bit better via the main Thoth deck. These are the backs. So you have the Tree of Life there. And yeah, I think it's a gorgeous deck actually. Now, I'm not sure if I want to make it borderless. If you've got this deck and you've made it borderless, do let me know. I mean, does it work out? Does it look good? I think with these kind of images, it might, I don't know if it would be a good idea. There's the Wheel of Fortune for this deck. And I don't know what was used to do the images. Was it pencil drawings or something else? I don't know what the combination is, but to me, because I'm not an art expert, but to me, I actually really like these colors because they are so simple. Sometimes I like decks like this where it's quite simple in terms of certain primary colors used and so forth. So yeah, so this is a deck that I am kind of like working with via the main Thoth deck as well. So the next question we have is, pleased to meet you. Show us a new arrival or a deck that you haven't had the chance to work with yet. And now this is where you're kind of like going to see, now I get it. So there are two decks, and they were both bought around the same time, and they're both kind of like decks where there was a release date for the US, which was nowhere near the release date for Europe. And we all found that out because loads of people had ordered these decks, and it just didn't, just weren't turning up. Now the first deck is the Dreamkeepers Tarot. Now you've probably seen this in my shelf in other videos. This is a US Games as well. US Games is doing well with this video this time around. Now this is an absolutely stunning deck, and the reason why I really wanted it was because, of course, it is kind of like this. It's kind of like a play. It's not exactly. It's collage art, of course, but it's a play on this kind of like very old maybe turn of the century kind of like, and then early 20th century art. I don't know how else to put it. It's collages, but I love it because of the fact that it's so old world. I mean, you know, these kind of images and this kind of art is like my everyday life where I live, basically. And so because, of course, it reminded me of this, I really wanted it. I really wanted to try it. But the deck was originally available, and then I was going to order it, but then I thought, wait, and then it became unavailable. And then we're like looking at months before I found out what is going on. And like, so I saw this deck in, I think, March, and finally I got my hands on it in August. So you can see what a mess that was. And there's sometimes things like that, which honestly speaking can put me off a deck, because by the time I get it, I'm like, okay, yeah, nice. Okay, you took a long time to arrive. And I think I've punished her a little bit, or him, because of that, which isn't fair actually. These are the backs. And of course I should mention the author, and the author is Liz Houston. And I just want to check, is she the artist as well? And I think, or she or they, I should say, sorry about that. And I think they are the artist as well. I'm not quite sure, but I think they are the artist as well. I don't see any other names here. The guidebook is phenomenal for this deck, because for each card you have such a, you have so much information. You have a divinatory message. So you have, first of all, what the card is about. I think US Games could have put this in color, honestly speaking, but okay. Um, but then, you know, you have the authors kind of like their own take on that card. And then you have a divinatory message. And the only thing is, right, that this is what sometimes annoys me, is sometimes the reversal is like one line. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking to see if maybe in the future there's more content on reversals, because what happens to me is that I really don't care for reversals. Like, sometimes I've seen a card and I've known even upright, like, I think actually this card is saying I need to address this issue, not this is working out well for me. So for example, let's take a card randomly. Let's take the Ace of Wands. What a fantastic card there, by the way. Coming in, like, she looks fantastic. Like, she really looks like she's about to brew up something. But this is creativity. These is new forms of spiritual connection. This is about fire coming through. This is bringing together the elements. This is like a birth of a new creative project. This she also reminds me, this card also reminds me a lot of like the Queen of Wands as well, which is like such a strong, fiery, honest energy, right, coming through. The Queen of Wands says what she wants to say, and sometimes it can be a little bit brutal, but she's different from the Queen of Swords, because the Queen of Wands for me has this it's a very strong energetic rush, physical rush that I feel. And I always feel like there's a bit of her already in the Ace of Wands. It's almost like that pot is holding a lot of new birth in there. And sometimes if I can pull out this card and I'm not feeling like that, already I can sense that I'm seeing already the reversal of this energy, or what you can interpret as a reversal. Now that can be the total opposite, like creativity stuck, new project not going anywhere, or it can be also my attitude towards it. It can be about kind of like, you know, I don't want to create something. I am quite negative about new ideas coming through. It could be about just, you know, not wanting to see that this potential. So it can be two ways. It can be an outer external factor, or it can be my own inner truth as well. And sometimes I've had a card come out upright and I'm like, this is actually telling me that it's not, that this area needs addressing somehow. And you might ask me, well, how do you know that? And that's usually for me to do with what's going around the spread as well, that card as well. So what are the other cards coming through? And I say that because I'm explaining all of this, because that's why sometimes for me, I prefer not to use spreads, because the flow itself and the question from myself or from the querent is itself revealing what's going on through how it's laid out. And the other thing you might ask is, and you ask yourself these questions, and just to be very clear, most of the time when it's an issue really close to my heart that I need answers for, I actually go to somebody else. I will go and get a reading, because otherwise I just feel like my own energy is interfering with my own reading. So usually when it comes to some of the real deep stuff and I really am lost, I'm gonna go to someone and ask for their services. And I absolutely love it. I love being also the querent myself, because I learn a lot from somebody else reading for me. So just in case you're wondering, but this is a deck which I think she got a little bit punished because how she turned up in my life, and I don't think that's fair. So I am going to enjoy delving into this deck, I think, in the near future. And the other deck which actually joins it, because this is where I'm cheating a bit, there's two decks like this, is the one that was also very similarly kind of like, it's yeah, we're US Games again. This is 2020. It's the Tarot of Mystical Moments. This is by Katrin Welstein, and the reason why I needed to get this was because I've seen her artwork so much here already in Europe. She's, as I understand, she's German. They I should be very careful again. I understand that they are the artist as well. This deck, now I saw this deck all over social media. I saw people showing it, and I have to say for Belgium, it was really, really hard to get this deck. I mean, this deck went AWOL for a good 2 months. like Book Depository and Amazon, and I gave up actually. I was like, and then somehow on Amazon there was like a week where again it showed up available, and I remember I checked it out at like 23 euros. I was like, I'm getting this deck, and I remember then again, and it came to me. I got the deck, and then I remember again it went out of stock again. So I just happened to get it when there was a window, and now of course it's very freely available. But we went through a really hard time, by the way, in Europe with these decks. Some of us did anyway. The side has silver gilding, and the cards are super slippery. But the images are some of my favorite images of a tarot deck. I absolutely love it. Both decks, I just want to mention, there is some lack of diversity. I think this one does have persons of color. I need to check again with the Dreamkeepers Tarot. Could be wrong there. Just please bear with me. These are the backs before I forget. So yeah, this deck, but you know, it's set in a certain era. And so I try to be mindful as well that I don't, you know, I do know that in the, oops, see, it's slippery. I do know that in this era, and the part of the world which this is meant to kind of like recreate, there wasn't such a mixture of multicultures. But I do think that the author has put in, the artist has put in some different cultures, you know, so I don't want to be so harsh towards them. And so, yeah, I really, really love this deck. I really think that the collages have been done beautifully. See, there we go. She has put in persons of color, so I want to give kudos there. And it's a deck that I would like to spend a bit more time with, actually, and get to know. So both of these decks have sat by the side a little bit too much, I think. And yeah, and I do want to get to know them better. So I would love to also hear if anybody has any thoughts on how to dive into decks which have sat by the side, and they might not be for a daily pull, because I also have decks that I need to work for my monthly deep dives. As you know, I do that as well also on this channel. But there are loads of challenges right around. There's a recent challenge I've seen, and I need to remember who it is. But it's something about pulling a card a day. No, looking at specifically a card a day all the way up to the 31st of December. And we start with the Ace of Pentacles. And I'm trying to think of the YouTube creator who has come up with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and do that homework, and maybe come back to you all and let you know if maybe you already know who it is. But I just thought that was a really interesting challenge. And of course, then we're not picking cards randomly. It's specifically using specifically looking at a card a day all the way up to the 31st of December, and therefore ending with all 78 cards basically. And now I just remember it's called Drop M78, and DROPM all is standing for something, and I think it is something to do with each of the suits, and then the M is for majors, and then 78 is of course, because it's 78 it's all 78 cards. So I know that I just remember the challenge is called Drop M78, so that's already something for you to start off with. But yeah, this is already now at 24 minutes and going, so I think I better stop here. But yeah, it's been fun just to go through all of these decks with you, and I'm really grateful to Kasia at tarotmap for this hashtag, because it got me thinking for sure. And yeah, and as I pulled out these cards, especially the latter two decks, I realized how I haven't been giving them that much love. I've been a bit cold towards them, and I think that they do deserve there's the Judgment card, there you go, which is of course reawakening, and just, you know, coming to that moment of just like seeing things completely in a different light, in a new light, and shedding and letting go. And perhaps that's what I needed to hear today, was to let go of my preconditional beliefs, including how these decks came to me, and just to appreciate having them and enjoying them. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.